Welcome to another episode of the Teaching Canada's History podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Campbell, and today we are speaking with the finalists of the 2024 Governor-General's History Award for Excellence in Teaching. Created in 1996, the award recognizes innovative and impactful approaches to teaching Canadian history. For more information, visit canadashistory.ca/teaching award. Today I'm speaking with junior and senior high school teacher Anne Broders, who teaches in Gambo, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for speaking with me today, Joanne.
You're quite welcome, Brooke. It's an honor to be here speaking with you.
So why don't you explain to us the project that you and your students have been working on?
So essentially it began in our grade 8 social studies class, which studies the history of Newfoundland and Labrador, our province, and the people and events that have shaped our province. And we knew that there was a Mi'kmaq cemetery in the community. I didn't 100% know where. And so we kind of had this conversation that we wanted to go visit. And that's exactly what we did in the fall. And it was we picked a nice hot day, got permission letters, and we walked on the trails to this cemetery. And it was beautiful, a beautiful walk, a beautiful setting. We knew the trail was called Madeline's Trail. They knew it, I knew it, but nobody really knew why it was called Madeline's Trail. So we got to the cemetery, and there was a sign there that said, RC Indian Cemetery. When we got inside, there were 13 marked graves. And I guess by marked, I mean that there was wood around each grave site and a red flower in each one. But there was no written history about the 13 people there. So it was beautiful. The birds were chirping. There was a soft wind. You could hear the trees, the leaves, dancing. But you felt kind of sad and lonely, more so than at any other cemetery, because there was no knowledge there of who was buried. So we felt it was a void that we wanted to do something about. And that's essentially the beginning of the project. So we took something from the book because the curriculum does explore Indigenous history in Newfoundland and Labrador, but you can do what you like with it, So we had the opportunity to visit a Mi'kmaq cemetery. And so from there, we all had this sad feeling, every one of us, that, 13 people that were buried there needed some history given back to them. And we had so many questions about who, when, what, where, why, and how they ended up here. So we went back to our classroom, and the first thing that we did, certainly in this modern age, was Google Mi'kmaq Cemetery, Gambo. So we recognized and learned right away that it was declared a provincial heritage site in 2011, or a municipal heritage site in 2011. But basically, it said in the site that the who about the people buried there really was unanswered. So that wasn't enough for us. So then we found a couple of maybe paragraphs written about who could be there, but not enough to definitively conclude anything about the accuracy of the Mi'kmaq people here in Gambo. So I called the town manager, Lauren Green, and I explained to him what we had done in the classroom and where we would like to go as a class. We had this goal in mind, find out who's there and put some history in that cemetery because they deserve it. So he didn't know much, but he contacted, or he gave me the contact information for Fred Jeans, a member of the town of Gambo, who is also a member of the Heritage Society here. So I called Fred, explained our dilemma and our goal, and he was fantastic. He came with us in the classroom and shared everything that he knew with us. And from there, the information started to grow about who was there. And it was brilliant, actually. It was brilliant to see something empty in terms of history start to fill. And because it was the Joe family and we 100% knew that they were Mi'kmaq, I contacted Chief Madeline Joe And I contacted his office, explained what we were doing as a class, and how we would like to involve him. And also noting that his last name was Joe. And we knew that the main person buried at this cemetery was Madeline Joe and her descendants, her family. So Chief Joe, without any hesitation, was 100% on board. In fact, I think once he joined us, he was more the leader. He was just so invested in finding out who was there and honoring them, commemorating them. So he joined us in the classroom as well. So at different points, we had different presenters, and I had my students, and every day we sit in a circle in my classroom. Um, and we had Fred in one day, Fred Jeans, and Fred shared with us the history of what he knew. And they had the history, and they knew it well. So unquestionably, this was a collaborative project, and I love collaborating with others, and the students do as well. So because he shared what he knew, we learned from him, and by bringing Chief Joe in, we now had someone. We were no longer talking about the Mi'kmaq people. We had the leader of the Mi'kmaq people, Chief himself, in sharing his knowledge and his history with the students and with Fred. So it was a great think tank happening in the classroom, and we were doing it all for the people that were buried in that cemetery. So the students did fantastic research probably that was never done like theirs before by a group of students. They did family trees, they wrote poetry, they did artwork on canvas, we did artwork on the walls of the classroom in honoring the history of the Mi'kmaq people that were buried there. So it was a beautiful project. And then, of course, I guess I don't want to call it the end of the project, but we eventually, with Fred, with Chief Joe, and we invited people from the community, we went back to that cemetery and we had a service there. So it was really, really nice. Chief did said his prayer, did a smudging, and it was just a very powerful moment for all of us to be part of, the community included. So from beginning to end, 100% collaboration to make the project happen.
Yeah, it's a very moving project throughout all of these different stages. Can you share how your students were able to utilize and deepen their historical thinking skills throughout this work and throughout all these different stages?
Oh my goodness. I think first and foremost, probably the most visible aspect of historical thinking that I saw happen in the classroom immediately was the research. Because I didn't know more than them. Often teachers know more, and you're trying to get the students to where you are or close to where you are. We were together. I was going in with very little knowledge. And so it was great that as I was researching, they were researching too. And as they were figuring things out, I was figuring things out, and we were meshing it all together. So they became these great researchers, and they became great critical thinkers. And as they were digging and finding history and listening to Fred and listening to Chief Joe, they were really figuring things out. And I remember one child in particular in the classroom, he did a very deep dive into the family tree of the Joe family and created a big version of that in the classroom to share. And I thought, wow, we've gone from not knowing the name of one person that was there to creating a family tree of who might be there. And they did it based on the collaboration, with Chief Fred James and everything that we could find, from other people online. And so, yeah, they really took something that was unknown and made it known. And by doing so, they went through all the aspects of historical thinking. We went through it together, really. They became critical thinkers. And you can tell on the shirt that I'm wearing today, one of my students gave it to me because I say it all the time. History is never complete. what we know today can change tomorrow. And that's what they did. They took something and they changed the history in the sense that they made it known, they made it accessible to anyone who visits that gravesite now. And of course, because Land and Sea did a great job turning our project into a really nice little show, did a fabulous job. That was another aspect of learning, that bringing Land and Sea into the classroom for 3 days and then turning our project into a story was another level of learning for them as well. So it was just, it was really, really fantastic. And the causes and the consequences, and that we learned about how they were there, why they were there, why it ended. And it didn't end because it's some bad thing that happened. It ended because the Mi'kmaq people here, basically, they joined the community and they joined other cemeteries because they married into the community. So we learned that the history of Gambo is very, very rich in Indigenous history, because another group lived here too, the Beothuk people. And the Beothuk people and Mi'kmaq people were here at the same time and apparently got along quite well. So we wish we could, we just wish we knew more. We wish we could go right back in time, but we dug as far as we could dig and we found out as much as we could. So, these students in that particular class, they truly became historians. They really did. We did it together. So I certainly was there at the same level with them. And I think in many ways we were all teaching each other. And it was just a fantastic experience for all of us, the new perspectives that we learned and the new history that we learned that we shared with the community. So, yeah, I think, historically, they were part of a journey that they'll never forget. And I think Land and Sea, the CBC show, did a great job capturing all the levels of the learning and the historical perspectives as well.
You've shared the importance of collaboration in your classroom. Can you speak more about that and or the other types of resources that you like to use in your classroom?
So I'm big on collaboration. I don't think I would be able to teach without collaborating with others. I look back on my career. I've been teaching a long time, and I would have achieved very little without collaborating with others, because, my own knowledge on issues is often very small. But when you bring people into the classroom and they share their understandings, their perspectives, all of our learning grows. And it just makes the learning more interesting. It makes the teaching more interesting. And I think, too, it unites all of us, everybody that's collaborated together, the students, the teacher, and the guests that come into the classroom. We unite as one. And one person is not considered in some ways more of a leader than the other. We're all very equal in it together. So for this one here, as I said to you from the beginning, I knew very little. And so the students and I were on the same level. And when we brought in Fred Jeans from the Heritage Committee here in Gambo, and Chief Madeline Joe, and also some other people from the community, like a former colleague of mine sent me a picture of Stephen Joe that I don't think was well known. It was just amazing to see everybody kind of work together and start to figure things out. And it was great. So I think I can't imagine not collaborating. If somebody said to me, Joanne, you're going to go back in September of 2024 and right until June of 25, you can't do any collaborating in your teaching, I don't think I'd be able to teach. Or you probably would be turning to pages in the book and really not doing anything too investigative. And so I think that how we collaborate with others and using the knowledge that people have in the community is one of your best resources. So when I think of resources, I think of online resources and books and magazines, but I think I love people as resources. And that's the best resource, certainly, that we had in this project. We used people to honor and commemorate another group of people. And yeah, so it was fantastic, having the opportunity to collaborate with others to improve the teaching and the learning for the benefit of the Mi'kmaq people buried in that cemetery.
That segues really well into my last question, which is to ask about the impact of this project. I know that there have been so many outcomes, but I would love for you to share a little bit more about what you've seen with both for your students, but also for the community at large.
You know, sometimes when a project is finished and you have the time and opportunity and privilege to reflect on it, it's then that you realized what you learned and what students learned. And I think first and foremost, students became very engaged citizens in the community of Gambo for the Mi'kmaq people that lived in this community. They became young leaders, collaborating with other leaders in the community to find accurate information about uh, who was buried in that cemetery. They also, and if I went in and said to them, you guys are historical thinkers, they'd be like, what? But they really are. They really are historical thinkers. They took action to make history more accurate for a community. And they have a lot to be proud of. When Land and Sea aired the show initially, the public library here hosted the viewing, and invited all the students and their families and other people to come and watch. People from Newfoundland and Labrador schools came and watched with us, and it was a true celebration of work that they did to honor the Mi'kmaq people. And I don't think better learning could happen, than to take something unknown, to make it known, and to celebrate people. So it was fantastic. And they learned to be really effective at communication as well, because it wasn't just about learning. We wanted to give back to the community about this beautiful lady, Madeline Joe, who was Mi'kmaq here. She died in 1906, and she was this very skilled person. She was a healer. She fished. She did everything. So she was truly a leader in her community, our community. And we wanted to celebrate her, and we did. We did it through art, through words, every which way possible. So students really did a phenomenal job. And sometimes they don't pat themselves on the back enough to say, we did do a great job. And we had that celebration. Land and Sea sent out hats and shirts and to all the kids, and said like a thank you to them. So it was just it was wonderful for me as a teacher to be part of that experience, because as I said to you, I was totally on their level. I was learning as they were learning. I just threw the ideas out there sometimes. And so they did a wonderful job. And I think too, we learned that, from the beginning and certainly right to the very end, that cemeteries are places of history where we can learn so much about people, our people, and their past. And they did a great job in preserving the history of the Mi'kmaq people here in Gambo, along with the Heritage Committee here in Gambo, and along with Chief Madeline Joe. So I think too, it sends the message to them that when you have a big project that you want to discover, that you want to take on, collaborate, reach out to people and collaborate, and you'll do a much better job than try to do it on your own. Plus, it's more fun doing things with other people. You make great connections that can lead to other connections and other projects down the road. So the impact for students was just fantastic. I'm so proud of them for being the rich collaborators, the young leaders, and great mentors to other people to share history once you find it. Can I add on? I hope we did justice to Madeline Joe and her family because they deserved to be remembered.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for sharing all these words and for sharing the work that your students have been doing and that you have been doing. It's been so lovely to learn about this project.
Thank you very much, Brooke.